what's going on, everybody out there? This is Akkaiidan Azeroth with Knights of the Round Table podcast. And today in the studio with us, we've got my boy Drizzt. What's up, man?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. How you doing?
And over on the other side of the room, we got Mios. What's up, dude?
Not bad, not bad. How you doing?
And sitting directly across from me, we have Lady RoseKitty. What's going on, Rose?
Not too much, just enjoying the day. What about you?
Pretty much just enjoying the day. Today's topic, guys, we've got a topic that I've wondered about for a long time, and basically it's a question. Is gaming a waste of time? My personal thoughts on this. The single biggest misconception about games is that they're an escapist waste of time. But more than decades worth of scientific research shows that gaming is actually one of the most productive ways we can spend time. No playing games does not help the GDP. Our traditional measures of productivity. However, with that said, with games like Farming Simulator and American Truck Simulator, the Bass Pro World Tour games, and other games where you actually have to get a job and work, why can't it help the national GDP? And why would it be a waste of time, or why not, or why would it not be a waste of time? And so let's go ahead and just hit up on all of that for this episode. Rose, what's your ideas on this?
Honestly, I think video games have a lot of benefits to them, and with the way our technology is going, especially drone technology, one could argue that we could theoretically make it so that the video game you're physically playing is more related to, a drone doing that same task at hand for you. If you can't be the one to assemble a ship, be it naval or what have you, a drone that's well programmed enough that has the reaction time of somebody who's been playing video games for years is going to be a lot more precise than, say, somebody standing on the side of a leaning building or in scaffolding, because it's the same kind of brain requirement, but it keeps the body out of harm's way. And if we could do that with drones, how often do you have different science fiction things saying, oh, we have, and like Ender's Game, the kids who figure out how to defeat the alien race playing the video game. And it's like, if you can use problem solving, because that's the thing video games harbor most. It's not just the hand-eye coordination, which is a necessity. It's the problem solving. And that's something that most people don't learn anywhere else.
Very, very true. Mios, what's your thoughts?
Rose pretty much hit on a few of the good high points there. Psychologically, I think video gaming is very good for us. Problem solving and even learning. But video games could also be used for mentioning learning, training. With the advent of newer technologies, VR, they're becoming much more immersive, and the military even already does use simulators for things like piloting and so on.
Very, very true. Drizzt, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, what I'm thinking is you've got all these wonderful games, and you got the argument of people saying, oh, it's a waste of time, you could do something better with your life. Yes, but you've got these people that create these video games, and then you've got positions called video game testers, and they test the video games for a reason. They push the boundaries, they find the bugs, the loopholes. They're basically, in essence, a paid problem solver for what we have. And then if you want to take it a step further and take it outside the realm of video games, you got people, scientists, inventors, using their brains saying, hey, guess what? This person lost a limb I can fix that. I can give them a robotic limb and make it work. And it brings a certain identity back to the person. And that's amazing.
Well, and just tossing this out there, as somebody who's got a broken back and a broken neck, video games can be a nice way to, especially VR, to experience running again if you can. If you're stuck in a wheelchair or something like that, a video game can give you something you don't have anymore. It can give that bit of freedom to somebody who needs it. Like if you've got PTSD, you can use something like Minecraft to just give your brain something to do while you work out everything else. And it gives our brain a way to process that it might normally not be able to otherwise, because we're very complex beings, but the world we put ourselves in is very mono and very simplistic. The wake up, it's repetitive and cyclical to the point where it's amazing that more people don't go into midlife crises. But with video games, it gives people an out, be it for mental reasons, physical, spiritual, emotional. It's a way to get out of yourself, just to process even the day or the events that you're dealing with.
So very true. I was directly in the opening for the episode. I was directly quoting something that I had read, and I'm fact checking it now. It says that video gaming does not add to the GDP of any nation. Well, let me point out, China has earned $27.5 billion in revenue from gaming. The United States is right behind them at $25.5 billion. Germany, 4.37 billion in revenue. United Kingdom, 4.2 billion. Republic of South Korea, 4.18 billion in revenue. France is at almost 3 billion in revenue. And so, yeah, it is feeding GDPs like worldwide. And, so I think that's awesome. But the games, that it's probably talking about are the games where you have to work. And so I just really honestly think that it's awesome the amount of revenue that's being generated from gaming. It really is one of the largest industries on the planet right now.
Which is fascinating to think about, really. The fact that virtual currencies can have real world value. It's interesting.
It's mind-boggling, especially when most of the real-world currencies aren't backed by anything physical. The digital currency is easier to move and understand, especially when it's linked to something else. Because if it has the problem is, a lot of the money we use now has perceived value rather than actual value. But digital currency has data attached to it, which means even if the value isn't gold, the value is something, and it's something you can get a hold of, something you can measure. Even if it's just information, that alone gives a trade to work with that's far better than the faux gold backed money. What's the difference between a dollar and a monopoly dollar? Color, kinda. They're both worth about the same. Yeah. And with as many companies are taking out, like stalkers, or well, not stalkers, but like even checkout stands, all being replaced with machines. I mean, how long until we go full digital? We've already got Apple Watches that have EKGs built into them, which, not gonna lie, a little creepy to me, but whatever. It's still that, that integral part of the technology becoming part of us.
Although, as you were saying, paper money, all it's ever been is a promissory note to begin with. It's a piece of paper that represents the value of something else.
Yeah. Well, the dollar bill was supposed to only represent 1 ounce of gold, so.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the fact that we don't have that representation. So everything we do is going digital. I mean, even now, when you go out looking for a job, how many places out there are, oh, we actually want to see your face, and how many are, well, just put your resume in online. I at least got to give Canada some credit for the fact that they decided to go all in and make their money look like Monopoly money. So at least, they were ahead of the curve on the joke there. But I don't know. I think if we continued this digital progression, with video games, why not, if that's the way people learn? Look at Skillshare online. If you introduce that into a VR form, you can let people experience woodworking, metallurgy. You can have them learn a Skillshare-like class in a VR environment, and now your video game is training people exponentially faster than they can with the classroom setting of go in 8 hours, leave, homework, etc. To, okay, plug in, turn on the lesson. Great, in 8 hours, I just learned how to arc weld.
And not to mention, like, the freedom that opens up for people to learn things that they might not have been able to before. Like, I would love, like, to give something you even mentioned as an example, smithing. I would love to learn smithing, but there are no smithing classes where I live.
Yeah. And if you and you find something like that online and then VR it, you could learn it right there. You could learn the metal forge at your desk. And if you hook that into a drone-like setup, you can actually have your VR create something, have it sent to you, and our, expounded out world becomes a lot smaller now. Okay, no, there's no smithing or metallurgy where you live, but you get on the class, you do the VR, the machine copies your movements, it does exactly to you. You can get sent from the class, that shield you made or that chalice or whatever that you just put all that time and effort into, and it's no longer restricted by, do I have this? There's no more have and have not issue about the supplies if it's all digital and the machine is just copying your movements anyway. Because then you're not dealing with an AI machine. You are the controller. You are the person putting into it.
So then on top of your idea, if you had a 3D printer and you were making a shield or a sword or whatever the teacher wanted you to do, or whatever you did for the teacher, you would find a way to transfer it to him or her, and it gives a whole new meaning to show your homework.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And then your teacher grades you that way.
Yeah, or if the teacher is the one with the 3D printer and your system is just hooked into it. I mean, how many flight simulators out there could you train pilots? The military does it all the time with the flight sims. It's easier, it's cheaper, it's more effective. And best part is, when a pilot buries it nose first, you don't lose a $12 billion aircraft or a human being. You just get a game over screen effectively.
Exactly.
I mean, it's why so much warfare has become drone based, is because, the drone is cheaper than the person. And I think it's honestly a good way to do it if we start using video games as an extension, because our human beings want to play. When we're told we can't play, we get bored. And that's when we do stupid things. But if we can play and we can turn it into a game, human beings can do all sorts of things. If it's something you actually want to do, you'll learn how to do it just to have fun with it. If it's something that's a slog, you have to do the, how many book reports you have to read. Have to? No. We need to work on your English here. It's I should, not I have to. If I want to pass, then have to. But, otherwise, should. But if you make it a game and you make it something interactive, how many people play truck driving simulators, or M5, where you try and follow the rules just to be a law-abiding character? It's effectively a second life. And if you could transfer that, you could theoretically have some of these homebound people being able to be a cashier or what have you, just through that interface.
And that is making a good point, in that people playing video games can then take that experience of how they look at the world to make the real world either more entertaining or easier for them to function doing this, that, or the other. Just a random example, I fiddle around with stocks in spare time, and I look at it like a video game. It's just fun to me.
Well,
And go ahead. No, you first.
real quick, the other thing I thought on this like VR system or even just a video game, I don't know how much to this extreme you could take it, but if we are visiting all these terrible war-torn places, even through the VR, we wouldn't have to report back to the families and say, send the military to their door and say, sorry, you lost a loved one. Because, there would be no death of soldiers.
Except for one thing. And I have to play the devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Anytime there's a war, it soldiers have to fight. Soldiers have to die.
Yeah.
Sadly, that's just the way it has to be. Because at that point, there's no personal responsibility on the world leaders that are sending the troops to die. At that point, it's people playing a video game killing citizens of another country. And that's just screwed up on so many levels.
And I think that's kind of hitting the nail on the head. Is it's not necessarily even the casualties of soldiers, because that's not always necessarily how war is fought. It's not two armies meet in the field and whoever wins goes home and they get whatever prize. You're usually fighting over countries. These countries have civilian populations. You're more often than not, even if all the soldiers were automatons, there would always be civilian casualties.
Yes, and there has to be personal responsibility from the all the way from the soldiers to the world leaders of the two countries to everybody. I mean, look at the thing in Syria. There's videos popping up of women carrying their dead babies through Syrian towns due to shelling that was supposed to hit one group of soldiers, but instead hit a house. Vietnam. Look at it. How many civilians had their houses burned down? But yeah, war's ugly, and it should be. For everybody involved, it should be ugly, all the way from the president all the way down to the civilians. It's not meant to be a good thing. It's not meant to solve anything other than, just solving. It doesn't even solve the main problem that the two countries are dealing with. It just, basically just hurts everybody involved.
Well, and I mean, imagine if this entire situation, because the whole soldier thing, war is a tough one to touch on. There are some people who could argue that sometimes a war needs to happen, others, but rather than arguing that, why not just come together on the idea of using this kind of technology, these video games, things like that, to help somebody with ALS or to help a soldier who's recovering from what they're dealing with, because with technology where it is now, if we integrated it just a little more, how easily could we give that soldier their arm back or their ability to walk? Somebody with ALS, if we could get their mind into a place where they could contribute, like what if Hawking could have been able to completely give all of his lectures, not without need of a machine, but if he could have just put himself into that VR-like situation and taught completely, where it wasn't his body that was affected, his mind could do anything. And if we could do that with the technology, we can use video games to improve our culture exponentially. Not just culture, but our species. If we could, use video games even just to work out issues. I mean, how many wars are started by two national leaders who really just either need to hate, screw, or work it out? Like, oh, good, you won the game of chess. What were we fighting about? Nothing important. Go away.
Yeah, what if they were to do that with, let's say, two world leaders, get into an argument about something unimportant and it could potentially start a war. Instead of them sending actual people to fight on a battleground, how about those two world leaders meet up and play Call of Duty against, one on one? Winner take all. I personally think that would work way better than an actual war.
There are historical traditions of that in our own species too, because how often would militaries send out a single champion to have the two champions do combat rather than risk all the people?
Not an uncommon thing.
I mean, that's literally who Goliath was. So if you want to go way far back rather than the fantasy aspect, but yeah, I mean, if we were to do something like that, where it was, chosen nerd champion, now we can stop trying to kill each other over things that don't actually matter, and we can start focusing on the things that do, growth.
Yep.
To play devil's advocate, one of the things that I think has to be kept in mind, though, is as technology develops and these virtual worlds develop, but at what level we become immersed into this can be either beneficial or entirely detrimental. If we care more about the virtual world than the real one, then there's something not good going on, or how we let the virtual world affect the real world. This is going to sound like the nerdiest example ever, but there's an original Star Trek episode where two planets decided that war is an ugly thing, so they play a video game between the two of each other to determine who wins in this never-ending, ongoing war between the two of them. And whichever side has casualties, they randomly draw lots amongst their citizenry, and if your lot is drawn, you kill yourself. And this is how they have conducted warfare for thousands of years. But it got to a point where it's like they no longer knew why they were fighting, but to win the game became so incredibly important.
You're dead on right there. I mean, sorry if you were continuing your thought.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay, because I mean, you are right. There is that potential of going too far. As to your first point, the us caring more about the social than the real. I think that's already happened with the Twitter mobs and the 4chans and all the digital outrage out there. I think we already do sometimes pay attention more to the media and the digital aspect than we do what's going on in our own backyard. So I think in that regard, we're already doing it a little bit. But as far as complete detachment, there is the argument, what if we go full Wall-E or, Ready Player One, where, well, it's all burned down anyway, so screw it, we're going to go digital. There is that thing to keep an eye on. And I guess at that point, it comes down to our society going to be, not just this society, but the internet culture as a whole. Are we going to be devoted to being better than, being swamped down in physical silliness, arguments over, oh, well, my landmass is here. Right. But we have the technology to make it so that no one on planet Earth starves. So let's put down that crap and now start progressing as a species,
And I think as you're getting kind of hinting on it, like that would be one of my fears, would be that when humanity finds the virtual world far more appealing than the real one, and they hardly ever leave the virtual, then I fear for the real world.
No, you're absolutely right. And it is that serious question of how far are we down that trail even right now? Like when people just they see something on YouTube or Twitter or what have you, and it's that exponential outrage that loses the point of what's going on in the first place. Trevor's axiom, that's the one.
It's I feel like in a way you can almost already see it happening in our world. How many people are so much more obsessed with social media, celebrities, and so many things that are basically just constructs of what we have developed for entertainment than history or education or a lot of things that really matter.
Oh yeah.
So very true. All right, so we're at that point in the episode. Today we're going to do hot rounds or hot seat. How does that sound to y'all?
Sounds good.
All right, Drizzt, 30 seconds. How about Lich King?
Lich King was a very interesting expansion. You knew who the villain was right away. You knew the overhanging impending doom. It was in my opinion, the breaking point, the division between the expansions that has come before it and the expansions that are yet to come. And there are so many fans that still hail to this day that it is the best expansion that Blizzard has made. It was just one of those expansions that were just icing on the cake. It had so much gloom, doom, and looming threat to it that you just felt the Lich King breathing down your neck through the whole entire expansion up until the boss fight itself.
Except for one thing.
What's that?
It wasn't about the expansion. It was about the character.
All right.
You want to try again?
Oh, the question you gave him was on the character of the Lich King himself.
Exactly.
Oh, crap.
Well, now, see, that's not a fair one, because then you've got the question of Ner'zhul, Arthas, or Bolvar.
The
I
Lich
feel like you
King.
could go overall.
Well, yeah, but all
Because-
three have technically been him.
Yes. But the original Lich King, like before, after Arthas, but before Ner'zhul.
No, Ner'zhul was first. Ner'zhul was the Shadow Moon orc who got put into the armor. Arthas is the one who put on the armor after retrieving Frostmourne. Bolvar is the one who took the crown after we beat Arthas's.
Very
took us.
true. Okay, so before
Oh, my.
Bolvar, after Ner'zhul, and after he was Arthas, that Lich King.
You're wanting me to touch on Arthas and not all three.
Yes.
Oh boy. Okay. So Arthas is a very interesting character because he was under the rule of his father, Uther, and at the same time had Lady Jaina behind him. And unfortunately, he did not take his father's advice very well as he was growing up and trying to come into the crown and such.
Which is fair enough. I mean, it's that's the problem I have with Paladin. Hero. Oh, sorry. paladins in general, they tend to be just a little bit zealoty. And I get it kind of goes with the territory of, I wield the wild as a weapon. Right. But it's okay not to say, do it my way, I crush your skull with a hammer. Just put down the hammer. It's okay. Other books exist, not just your happy little go light one. Thanks.
All right, RoseKitty, Anixia.
Oh, that's a fun one. Because you had her when she was, what was the name of the human stand-in she was during Vanilla? Because Lady something or other. She was always standing there next to adorable little Anduin. And I think that's why I'm always like kind of giving Anduin a break, because I've watched him since he was like 8. It's like, little Anduin, you're a bad dragon, Anixia. Plus, she gets brought back by her brother, and you gotta feel bad for that poor dragon. She's just trying to please her world breaker father, and she's dealing with Franken-nutty, breed everybody older brother, and everything. I mean, is it really all that surprising when she went to to Dustwallow Marsh just to get away from it? It's like, you guys are gonna stay in Black Rock. Cool. I'm gonna go to the Elven continent where they don't try and make my clutch into all sorts of attack waves, and where older brother isn't resurrecting me from the dead for giggles and what have you. There's a lot of family issues there, so I'm not going to lie. It's amazing that Rotharian's even as slightly stable as he is.
Right.
All right, Mios. How about, let's see, how about Gul'dan?
Ooh, a fun one. An orc that was born misshapen, cast, I want to say, shunned by his clan first, then cast out. Gifted with shamanism, but craved power, to show his people that he wasn't just this small, misshapen little orc, that he was someone to be feared just as much as the greatest warriors. And he one day fulfilled that, I want to say, self-given prophecy.
Yeah, I can see that. I got one for you, Cooney. Oh,
Go for it.
Tyrion.
Tyrion. I don't know a whole lot about Tyrion because he was gone for so many years.
All I can recall is general in one of the Second or First War.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we did get him as the Order Hall. He was part of the Order Hall for Legion. He was the Lich King. That whole Lich King event. What'd you think of him, really?
I just honestly don't know a whole lot about Tyrion. I wish I knew more about Tyrion, but I don't.
All right. What about, which is the better leader, Sylvanas or Hellscream for the Horde?
Both of them are horrible, but if I have to choose one or the other, I'd have to say Hellscream. Because he was so good at pissing everybody off that all of us wanted to kill him. Both factions, Horde and Alliance, both hated him. Like, to the point of the orcs are working with the humans to go into Orgrimmar and take him out. And I just found that like totally awesome.
I feel like something that can be said of him is that day one he did tell Thrall, if you make me war chief, I will lead the Horde in the only way that I know how, and that is as the Horde.
Yep.
Yeah, I lost so much respect for Drizzt that day. I really did.
I think we all did.
Well,
Yeah.
why didn't he just put Bane in shit? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm biased. My first Horde race was Tauren. I got to say, love that background. Like, but seriously, why not just put the guy who actually cares about the planet you're living on there? You've had near peace how many times? Hyjal, we all work together. Legion, we all work together. Lich King, we all work together. Yeah!
All right, Rose. 30 seconds. Tauren race.
The Tauren race, easily one of the most interesting. Although you have the Night Elves that technically have shapeshift druidism, the Taurens were the first one to come up with druidism, which is something akin to witch harvest kind of druids that you get from the Worgen. So the first ones to understand the deep-rooted connection with the earth before the Kaldori were the Tauren, who actually understood they were part of a sentient circle with it. The Kaldori just happened to learn how to, poof, I'm a bear, poof, I'm a cat, poof, I'm a whatever, really fast. The Tauren were, happy to understand living as part of it. That's why they have the rituals that they do of being born of the birth and earth and returning to it. Why it's the Earth Mother, Anshi as the sun, and Musha as the moon. Both are required for the life cycle to actually freaking work. But do any of the Horde races get that? No.
All right, Mios, how about humans?
People almost want to think of humans as very generic and boring in Warcraft, but I actually like the lore that Blizzard gave to the humans. Creations of the Titans. First under the very cool, but something had happened genetically to them over time. They started becoming born smaller, becoming the humans we know, escaping to the Eastern Kingdoms, not knowing magic at first, having to learn that from their new allies to band together and fight the trolls. There's a lot of interesting lore there. Trollbane, an interesting character of their early history.
Definitely.
All right, Drizzt, your turn. How about Night Elves?
Oh, Night Elves. Night Elves are a very interesting race. They worship a loon, and they have a very interesting and a very unique respect for nature. And unfortunately, their home got burned down. But
I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. With as many races have lost their homes so far in World of Warcraft, it will be interesting to see how the most egotistical of races takes it. Because let's be perfectly honest here, by lore, the older your elf is, the more racist and xenophobic it is. Straight up.
I thought their introduction was kind of interesting. In early Warcraft gaming history, and that until Warcraft 3, you never knew anything about any other groups of elves. All there was the High Elves, and suddenly we now have this new group that, in their own lore, is older.
Yeah, and it's because they shut themselves off. I got one for you, Cooney.
Go for it.
Worgen.
Worgen. Ooh, fun. Not human, not mutt, but Worgen. Okay, yes. The Worgens, they were in Gilneas, and they're werewolves, basically. They have human form and wolf form. The wolf form was caused from a curse where the first Worgen was bit, and then he spread it throughout everybody in Gilneas, and I forget what the names are, but yeah, basically it was a curse. The undead wanted to take Gilneas from them, and they pretty much fought tooth and nail with the undead there, because Sylvanas was saying it's basically our area, you're in our zone, and we don't want you on our map. And so they basically tried to annihilate all of the Worgen. They ran the humans out of South Shore and put up all kinds of just really weird undead camps, like all through that whole area. But yeah, it's a really cool story.
I always liked the story about how they were technically the first developed by humans as a weapon.
Yep, Argle. He wanted to use them as a weapon against the Lich King because the shifted could not be affected by undeath.
Ah,
And the reason you have Worgen DK is because they actually were, as I recall, they were basically affected by the form. Well, actually,
I think it was something along the lines of similar races. Well, not similar, but there were other races that had similar characteristics, like, say, the Nerubian. The Nerubian could not just be turned into undead while living. That's a power that the old Scourge was said to be actually be able to do. They could mind control or otherwise plague living people and turn them into the undead. But they could not do that to Nerubians because they had to be raised once already dead. And the same thing with the Worgen, I do believe.
Yeah, it had to be. They couldn't just obtain the death form like the troll did from DTK.
If I remember right, it's actually part of the lore for Nerubians that if you pay attention, they almost always have bandages, and the reason of that, it's not part of their clothing, is because the only way to raise a Nerubian was to kill it. So they had to stitch them back together.
sorry to cut this conversation short. For now, does anybody have any final thoughts on the conversation of is gaming a waste of time?
It's a subject that I think, like any, has pros and cons.
Indeed.
If we're responsible with it, it could be very useful. But when was the last time we were responsible with anything we've created?
So very true. Drizzt, do you have any final thoughts?
You know, if we're not careful with that technology we are given, the technology unfortunately controls us
Indeed.
if we don't
And,
use it wisely.
you know, with using it wisely, I don't see that in the very near future, possibly 100 years from now. But right now, all of the developers all that they're really thinking about with gaming is how much money can I make? You know, because it is a cash cow all the way from the developers all the way down to the streamers to the Intel to Dell to Hewlett Packard. It's just a cash cow for all of them. And so once the cash runs out, then they'll start considering it for uh, you know, using it for training and for this and for that. But yeah, I'm honestly waiting for that day to come. I think it'll be awesome. On that note, I am Akkaiidan Azeroth, and this has been Knights of the Round Table podcast. Thank you for listening. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Throw us a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't, and let us know about it in the comment section below. One of us will hit you back. Thank you for listening and have a great day.
Bye.
Have a great day.